Bible. The Bible talks to us. We read the words and we hear them and we wonder, what does this mean? And this wondering is so crucial. This questioning, this struggling, this wrestling. Because if we don't wrestle, if we don't struggle, if we don't engage the stories, then they have no meaning for us. There's a lovely little text in which Jacob is having a hard time in his life, and Jacob is one of the descendants of Abraham. And he's sleeping on a stone for a pillow, and that's symbolic to suggest how hard things are going for him. He's just been over here, and he's going over here, and he's created some conflict, and he has to go back and address his brother, and he's wondering what to do. And in that night, sleeping in that pillow in that hard place, he has a dream. And in the dream, an angel comes down, and he says to the angel, I will not let you go until you bless me. And he spends the whole night wrestling with that angel. And in the morning, the angel goes away. Jacob has the blessing, but he walks away with a limp. It cost him something to wrestle with the angel. And that text is so very, very important to me as a person, because life needs to be wrestled with. The Word of God needs to be wrestled with. We need to struggle with it. And most of the time, we feel that we're not sufficient. Well, I like the text today because I have an affinity for Jeremiah. There's something about Jeremiah that seems to me to give me a sense that maybe my life isn't a wasted effort after all. And one of the things I have in common with Jeremiah is this sense that there's been a destiny at work in me from the very beginning. When I was in the womb being formed, is how Jeremiah puts it. And I think I would put it the same way, looking back on my life's experience. And at that point, I just want to make a little interjection about a documentary series that Barbara and I have been watching, and I think it's PBS, and it's called The 9 Months That Formed You. And it's basically a series of medical examinations of what happens in the womb the moment the female and the male part meet each other in the fallopian tubes, I think it is, and generally move down into the womb and start to form a child. From these two little bits of male and female, each one of us was formed in the womb. But this documentary talks about the various stages and how critical every stage is. And at a certain stage, certain chemicals are released, and this does this, and this does that. Sorry, I can't remember all the technical stuff. But I would like to leave in your mind the idea that even before you had a choice about anything, you were already being shaped. And that is to say, you, at this stage in your life, may feel that you are the one who determines the outcomes of your life. But I would like you to recognize that the pattern that was established in the womb has gone through your childhood and your adolescence, and to some extent, even your adult years. That is to say, when you came out of the womb, you came into a family, and you came into a community, and these had influences. They shaped you. And a lot depended on whether you met with the approval of others or whether you met with the disapproval of others. You had experiences that determined what kind of a grown-up you would be. And that is so very important to me, seeing that documentary, recognizing that how much of my life is beyond my determination. And that leaves me with a sense of either being anxious because I can't make things go the way I want them to go, or it can bring me to a place of trust. That is to say, as I was formed in the womb, as I was formed in my childhood, perhaps the wise thing for me to do at this stage of my life is not to try to exercise more control, but to relinquish control and let the natural processes that God has set in motion from the beginning take charge of me. That is to say that I begin to work as a person to try to get in line with the design that God has for me as a human being. Now, when I came out of the womb, I was very fortunate because I had a mother who was a bit of a social person. She loved to walk between villages with me. Even when I was still in the womb, I'd be on the bike with her, and we'd go from village to village, and she'd always stop and talk with people. And then when I was born, I'd be put on the back of the bike, and then in the carriage, and all these things. But always as an infant, I was being exposed to mother in relationship with people. And I don't know if I can remember this accurately, but I have the sense, and most people who know my mom have the same sense, that Mom, when she stopped and talked with people, always left behind something that was positive, that was affirming, that was life-giving. That is to say, she was a nurturing person. And we have generally stereotyped that as to be a woman's role, but we know in the modern world that men are every bit as capable of nurturing as women are. It's just that they haven't practiced it through the ages in the same way that women have. But that is beginning to be redistributed. So at this point in time, we are all of us being called to be communicators of care and compassion. Now, Jeremiah had a hard job, and he was aware of that job when he was a child. And there's been a sense in me also that from childhood, there's been a purpose that I'm supposed to realize. And up until I was about 15, I thought that purpose was to be a hockey player. Many boys in Canada thought that when they were my age. And I was a very skillful hockey player, but I had no ambition to succeed in that field. There was a part of it that I didn't really care for. I loved the cooperation, I loved the team spirit stuff, but I really did not like that most of the time the emphasis was on winning, about putting the other team down and putting your team up. But as a young boy, once I began to realize that most of the ordinary occupations weren't going to be my lot, I had to try to figure out, who am I then? And for me, the whole struggle has been about, how do I clearly communicate who I am to people so that I could make a positive difference in their lives? And I didn't know that I was successful at that for a long period of time. I tried and I tried. I think sometimes that I got along so well as what we would call an itinerant person, a person who didn't have a fixed address of his own, is that I was genuinely kind to people. So people were glad to have me as part of their experience, even if it was only for a short while. But it was at the age of 30 that I discovered that I could use language in a way that was beneficial to people. And that's when I began to do home care. I was working with people, bathing them, cleaning them, etc. And the point I'd like to emphasize there is that language is not just the words we speak. Language is also affective. And by affective, what I mean is our bodies also communicate. And sometimes, for very careful listeners, we discover that a person who can sort of hear between the lines will read the body language of a person and listen to the verbal language and realize there's a big disconnect here. How are you doing this, Mabel? Oh, I'm fine. Oh, really? I thought your dad had just died. Oh, no, I'm okay. And we look for these disconnects. And what we try to do is help people make a connection between what they're really experiencing and what they think they should be experiencing. And one of the dilemmas in the modern world is that there's a tremendous pressure that we live in the best of all possible times. We have every advantage. All good things are ours. Therefore, why on earth could we possibly be unhappy? So many persons in the modern world suppress their unhappiness. They push it down and they put on an affect. They put on a sense, oh, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. But alone at night, sometimes on the pillow, is a great struggle. Oh dear, what am I going to do about this? Or what am I going to do about that? And that takes me from Jeremiah's struggle with not being adequate in terms of his language skills to communicate the message of God, an inadequacy that I share with Jeremiah, to a maturity, so that Jeremiah is now remembered after all these years for effectively stating the case and offering people an alternative. And what I'd like to suggest is that Jesus calls us, like Jeremiah, to bring a message. So just like Jeremiah, we might be saying, I can't bring a message of your love to people. What do I know about it? And God says to us, in the same way as God spoke to Jeremiah, don't think about how competent you are. Think about how able I am to deliver the love that you're going to be trying to share. And what I find in the story about the woman bent over with an affliction, it says an evil spirit in the transition, but it says spiritual. This woman is struggling with a life issue that has got her crushed. It's got her down, it's got her beat, it's got her feeling that she can't get up, it's got her feeling that her life has lost its meaning. She doesn't know where to turn. And all around, friends and neighbors have just gotten used to this, and they've accepted it, and they said, oh, well, that's just Maud. You know, that's just Maud. She just can't get over this inside thing, and she just can't get her life together. And what I'd like to suggest is that Jesus goes about in his life just meeting people. And on this day that we read about today, he meets this woman. And wherever Jesus meets a person, it seems that something shifts. And what I'd like to say is that as a preacher, I have opportunity to choose words, to choose spirit, in a hope that somehow something that you're struggling with might shift for you. And that the direction you have been going with a life issue, maybe you can get turned around and going in a new direction, a more positive, a more healthy direction. And that's what we see Jesus doing all the time in interpersonal relationships, making a difference by his words and his actions. And what I am hoping is that right now in the earth that there's a spirit, and that spirit is not the spirit of power, it's the spirit of gentleness. It's a spirit of compassion. It's a spirit of kindness. And that these things we can learn to express. We can really say in our quiet moments, dear God, there's nothing I want more than to help my family get on with their life in a good way. There's nothing I want more than my neighbors to get a happy, successful life. There's nothing I want more than my country to do well. There's nothing I want more than my planet to be healthy and happy. And once you set that as your goal, this desire to be part of a great change that is coming in the earth, once you mobilize yourselves, and the example I can give for you folks who remember the 2 world wars is when those wars were declared, thousands of people stepped forward and said, I'll help. I'll do what I have to do. Whatever it costs me. I'll give up butter. I'll give up tires. I'll give up new clothes. I'll sacrifice. I want this war to be won. And if we were so ready to give ourselves to these wars that are now part of our memory, and they're also part of our possible future, I'm hoping that we'll say, no, we're going to choose a different kind of way of being in the world. We're not going to choose to be soldiers. We're not going to choose to be people who take guns and go and kill. We're going to choose to be soldiers of peace. We're going to choose to be warriors of love. We're going to choose to be ministers of compassion. And we're going to resist the fears that mobilize us to do all kinds of aggressive and harmful things against others. No matter what it costs, we want to be involved to make a positive difference. I'm just looking at Evelyn there, and I'm just remembering that she washed those baseball uniforms. And it's a small example. And each one of you can think of examples of your own life where something you've done which seems so insignificant has made a major difference for somebody else in the world. When I first married Barbara, we used to walk around in grocery stores and stuff, and every once in a while a nursing student would come and say, oh, Dr. Patterson, I remember you. One day you changed my life forever. And afterwards I'll say, Barbara, what happened that day? And Barbara said, I don't really remember. She said, I think I told a story about our dog in one of the lectures. But what it is that we don't know. When we tell a story to somebody about something that happened, maybe we were at the beach or maybe we were in a hard time, and we share that story in the sense of compassionate care for the listener, the one who we're talking with, then perhaps something can shift. And right now what the earth needs more than anything, it does not need more technology. It does not need more of the things that money can buy. There's only one thing the world really needs more of right now. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. That's the only thing that there's just too little of. And so when you come to church, and this year is going to be very big on this, the idea of being passive is no longer an option. And churches have socialized us to be passive. The very structure of our liturgies are structures of passivity. But we're going to be moving forward into a much more inclusive. And the challenge for me is to get out of the way so you folks can get that done. You've got about 1 year to make some very, very important decisions about what's going to happen next in this little community of faith. And what I'm going to suggest to you, and this is along the lines of Jeremiah, how you have been experiencing your life isn't got any sufficiency anymore. It's no longer going to be solvent. The future is going to present new kinds of challenges, and so we have to know how to change. And one of the things might be just getting rid of these straight rows and get rows that we can jumble up a little bit. And get rid of the idea that church is high and holy, but to realize that church is just people getting together, sharing their lives, and encouraging and supporting one another. That's what Jesus did when he was on the earth. He did not come to start a religious tradition. He came to start a way of being in the world. And he came to invite everyone to join him in that way of being in the world. And we cannot say that Jesus is number one for us if we decide to live in a way that contradicts the hope that Jesus offers us. So I'm not a very religious person anymore as I age, but I am more and more becoming a human being. And I am persuaded that the one thing that is required now is for human beings to really ask, what does it take for me to be the best possible me? And not the best possible me in terms of the marketplace, in terms of competition for all the good prizes, but the best possible me in terms of showing forth God's love to others. That's what the world needs. That's what we have opportunity to do together, is to live our lives in such a way that benefit comes to those we meet serendipitously or in the regular part of our lives. So I'm hoping that you, in your workplace, in your places of learning, in your places of recreation, will always be mindful that the love of God is in you, and will always be ready to allow that love of God to be your trust. That you do not trust in your competence. You do not trust in your expertise. You do not trust in your ability. You trust in the love of God. And I'll just tell one little story. It was about an Anglican bishop, and there was a pastoral charge. This was many, many years ago, and the priest had died. They didn't know what to do. So one of the people in the congregation was just appointed to take the services. And the bishop came by one day, and he stood at the back and listened, and he was overwhelmed with the depth of spiritual meaning in that service. And he went and he talked to the person. He said, how can it be? You've never trained to be a minister. You've never trained to be a speaker. You've never studied theology. How are you able to deliver such a rich spiritual message? And he said, God is my helper. I trust God will bring the message. So when I speak with you on Sunday mornings, I trust that God has something for you. I hope that you too will trust that God in you has something for the people that you meet along your way. And it can be small, tiny little things, like a glance. It can be a kind word. It can be a kind deed. But right now, I am encouraging you to think, in an example, how can I get involved in potluck when we need people to serve that food and clean up afterwards? How can I get involved with the PowerPoint once we start that again? How can I get involved with planning worship? How can I get involved with outreach? How can I get involved with the life and work of the church? And simply take some steps forward in a new direction. And who knows, we might have good news for this town and for our world someday. But for now, I trust that if any one of you is bent over with the weight of life's worries, that Jesus Christ is waiting to reach into your experience and to bring about the change for which you are longing. And we all, do you agree? We all would like to help relieve that burden.